The departure of troops from Iraq with the pressure to end the involvement in Afghanistan earlier rather than later. There's been a lot of discussion about the Obama administration switching to a more Asian-oriented foreign policy. So do you agree with that thrust, away from Europe, the Middle East, toward Asia, and what do you think the impact would be?
Personally, the GOP believes that this is a long time coming. We believe that China, being the fastest growing world power today, should have been looked at as soon as President Obama took office. This is something that should have been stepped up a long time ago. Currently, China holds $1 trillion of the U.S. debt. That means essentially they own $100 trillion worth of, $1 trillion worth of America. Not only that, but they've continued to bully other nations around Southeast Asia with their growing military power, which they have accumulated from having a much larger economy and a fast-growing economy. This has resulted in them becoming foreseeably within the next generation actually able to challenge the United States of America both militarily and economically, and that is something that should have been looked at and taken care of quite a long time ago and not just now. As far as another country in East Asia that I'm sure many of you are aware of, North Korea has been a problem for quite some time, and it is true that currently they have agreed to step down their long-range missile programs and supposedly cease their nuclear testing and whatnot. We are essentially appeasing to their leader by sending 250,000 tons of food aid over to them. This is essentially a form of appeasement. Any students of history in here will know that appeasement to dictators does not work. You can simply look back to one of the most well-known dictators of all time, Adolf Hitler. Many people tried to appease to him, give him land grants here, give him money here, and obviously that didn't work. That just fed their desire for power. And currently, just to prove that the appeasement is not working, the North Koreans are planning on launching a long-range ballistic missile, supposedly in memory of their fallen leader Kim Jong-il, sometime in about the middle of April. So obviously the appeasement is doing nothing to really completely stop their programs. And as far as focusing a large amount of our foreign policy in East Asia, we cannot forget the Middle East and what's going on there. Obviously, with the Arab Spring, many countries are crying out for democracy, and many of them have attained it to a degree. But our biggest issue right now over there is Syria and Iran. And currently, with Syria, the UN estimates over 7,500 innocent civilians have been killed by their own government. Obviously, there's something needs to be done there. And then to talk about Iran, simply because Syria serves as a proxy to Iran. For us, the next best thing to a regime change in Iran would be a regime change in Syria. So we cannot forget about the Middle East, and this should have been addressed quite a while ago. Thank you.
Democratic response.
Well, like what my counterpart said, I think our president has actually done quite a bit to increase foreign policy over in East Asia. More specifically, he held the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in Honolulu last November, and he also attended the East Asian Summit, and he's the first American head of state to do so. And he also took an extensive tour of East Asia, everywhere throughout Asia, and actually ended in Indonesia. Also, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has said numerous times that the economic and strategic future of the United States lies in building relationships in Asia, and China's has a greater growing influence on the region, and that this administration is well aware of that. And as Ryan said, we do owe about $1 trillion to Asia, so that in itself makes it very important that we keep our foreign relation ties closely to them. Also, several of the largest, fastest growing economies are in East Asia. It's also home to the world's busiest ports, imports, exports. Also, there's some not so great things, as Ryan hit on as well, military buildups in the region, proliferation of nuclear weapons, North Korea, natural disasters such as Japan and the earthquake, and also on the environmental level, they also have some of the worst greenhouse gas emissions in China, more specifically. So when it comes to environmental policy, that's also going to come into effect if we're going to ever try to get some kind of coherent policy on that. We need to be on good speaking terms with East Asia. Also, the U.S. had a South Korea free trade agreement that was actually passed in early 2010. So Barack Obama has actually been on this for quite some time and doing some things that some previous presidents never did it, took the time to do, Republicans and Democrats alike. So I think that, we can't totally cut off Europe and the Middle East, and there are obviously some things going on, as Ryan said, with Syria and Iran that I think we need to pay close attention to. But I feel that as a country, we need to make sure that we kind of broaden our horizons and our foreign policies all around the country and not focus too much of our time and energy on one specific part of the world. We want to retain our superpowerness and our global economy. So.
Thank you. Well, we were focusing